Hello everyone, and welcome to this Dom Labs tutorial, where I'm going to be adding a score canvas to our card delivery game, and teaching you guys how to do it too. But before we do this, there are a few things that I would like to do. First thing, I would like to go to our follow camera, and change this lens ortho size to something like 20, or something like 15. So now, when we go into our game view, we can see more of our game. And now I would also like to change our move speed to 0.03 and our turn speed to 0.2, so we just go a little bit faster. And then I would also like to go to all of our ground objects, and all of these ground objects I would like to highlight all of the objects that I have that are like rocks or trees or houses. I would like to add Box Collider 2Ds to every single one of these. So I'm going to add Box Collider 2Ds to every single one so that we can collide with them now instead of just going through them. And that should fix up some of the problems that I had with the game beforehand. But now onto the score canvas. So what we can do is we're going to right click, create a UI, and then a canvas. We can name this the score canvas. Then we're going to push F to zoom out. So now this is the score canvas. So what we're going to need to do is create a text for the score. So we're going to go into UI and then Text Mesh Pro. And then I'm going to import Text Mesh Pro into my project. If you don't want it, then you don't have to import it. And then once it's imported, you could I'm going to rename this to score text. And then inside of the text, I'm going to type something amount of packages delivered. But this looks very small. So I'm going to change the font size to something like 108. And then I'm going to align it in the middle. And then I'm just going to make this bigger and then move it up to here. So now if I look in the game, it says that right there. But I think I'm going to want to change this vertex color to black, so the text is black, and then I'm going to change the font size to something like 64. So it's a little bit smaller, but it's still right there. So if I go into the game, you can see that we can see that nice, and it's right there. There's a lot more things you can do with Text Mesh Pro, but I'm not going to get into all of them. If we wanted to do an outline, we could do a white outline for our texts if we wanted to, by just moving the thickness, and that would give us a little outline. So right now if we zoom in, we can see that there is an outline right there, and that outline, the thickness goes up and down. And then we can also change an underlay, and then we would just have to change the color. Let's say I want a red underlay, and then I can change the softness to between 0 and 1, and that's just going to make this stand out a little bit more, which is something which is always nice. I think I'm going to change this to white so it stands out a bit more. You can also change the offset so it looks like it's going up and down. I'm going to change this to 0. I'm going to change the offset on the Y so it looks like it's going down. Dilate also changes how bright this will be. So if I want it bright, I can change the dilate to 1. If I don't, I can change it to -1. I'm going to just keep this at 0. And you can see here that this text looks a lot nicer than the simple text that we had before, which we can just collapse all of these, and then we can save it up. And now when we click play, we're going to have this nice text, but it's not going to do anything. So what we can do is inside we can create a new script, a new C# script, and I'm going to name this Score Manager. And now we can open up this in our choice of coding editor. I'm going to open this up in Microsoft Visual Studio. And inside here, we're going to create a few variables. First one's going to be a public int, and it's just going to be score. This is going to be our score. At start, we're going to set score to be 0. And then we're going to need to create two add to our, or one public method that adds to our score. So let's create a public void add to score, and then we're going to do a score plus, and this will add 1 to our score. So we're going to want to call this in places like our driving manager, where we put the package down. In the car controller right here, where we're destroying the packages and we're creating new ones, we're going to want to add another one to our score. So let's get a reference to a public score manager. We're going to name this score manager. And then right here, where we are destroying the put down package, I'm just going to add one to the score. So I'm going to do score manager dot add to score. And now this is just so that we don't have to make this variable, we don't have to use it in other places, we can just use this method right here. But you'll notice that if we go into Unity right now, it's not actually going to update it because we have to do that inside of this update method. And so up at the top, we're going to type using TM Pro, and this is just TextMesh Pro, and we're going to have to use this if we're using TextMesh Pro, which I am. If you're not, then you would just use the regular text that Unity used before. Now I'm going to get a public TextMesh Pro UGUI, and I'm going to name it score text. And then inside of update, I'm going to set this score text dot text equal to our score dot toString. And this just updates our text every single frame, and that when we add to our score, it's going to add to our score text too. So I'm just going to click out. Once we're back inside of Unity, I'm going to go to the score canvas and then add the score manager script to it. And it's going to look for the score text. I'm just going to drag that in right here. And we're going to set the score, it's going to be 0 right now. And something that I would actually also like to do is on this score canvas, I'm going to add a UI panel, and then this is just going to be a background panel, and this is just going to be on a background for our score. So I'm going to move it right behind the score and size it up just so it's like this. And then I'm going to put it right behind the score text, so the score text gets drawn on top of it. I think I'm going to move it down a bit so it's centered, and then now if we go into the game view, it looks much nicer. I'm also going to need to change this a bit to be a bit bigger so it can include the number. So if the amount of package delivered is 99, then this is what it will look like. So I'm going to have to just change and move this panel to look like that. So now what we're going to do is we're going to click play and just see what this looks like. And then if we go in and it says 0, and that's because what we're doing inside of the script is that we're just setting the score text to this. But what we're going to want it to set it to, so we can do quotation marks plus this, and then inside of the quotation marks we're going to do an amount of packages delivered, and now it will say amount of packages delivered, and it's going to be our score. So now we can go back inside of Unity and click the play button, and now it should say amount of packages delivered. And now you can see I can zoom around here, I can hit myself off of here, and I can't grab the purple one because I have to grab this pink one first, or the yellow one first. But you can see that the yellow one is inside the house, which is something I don't want to happen. So what we can do is we can just change our driving manager script to where our random range is. And what we're going to do is check our car. I'm going to put it from Y16 to Y negative 45. So from negative 45 to 16, I think would be a good number. And then I'm going to change the X to negative 15 to negative 0, or to 0. So negative 15 to 0. So now we can go back inside of Unity. After we've done that, we're going to have to go to our car, and where it says Score Manager, we're going to drag the score canvas onto that, because that is a reference, and we're going to have to set that before we click play again. But now once we set that, we can click play again, and now I can just go and search for the yellow package. I can pick it up, and now I can go to the pink package, the purple one right here, and now the amount of package delivered goes up. You can see it's now 1, and if I drive right here, now it'll be 2, and then I'll be able to collect another package, and this is all working out the way I would like it to. You can see here that there are some edge cases that these packages go inside of these trees, but you can see that I can still pick them up, which is all good. And that's what this game should be. And with that, that's the end of this tutorial. If you like this tutorial, please give our channel a like and a subscribe, because it really helps out a ton. Thank you!